Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Accidental Isolation. And today we're going to kick it off at the 704 shop, owned by Chris Moxley, a Charlotte philanthropist, a Charlotte entrepreneur, a Charlotte guy, right? He began the 704 shop simply for the city itself. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
What's up, man?
This season, like I said in the intro, we're really big on bringing the community of Charlotte together through mental health. I'm going to be partnering with local small businesses or big businesses to let the community know that these owners, although you may not see them every day, they mean business when it comes to mental health, right?
Absolutely.
This is important to everyone, and we're just trying to grow and make everyone else better by putting tools in their toolbox.
Excited to be here, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. You're a Charlotte legend, but for the people for the people who may not know, go ahead and introduce yourself, right? Give them a little background about who you are, where you're from, how you grew up, and what got you to this point where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, man, just kudos to you for building something, building a platform, and bringing it to the people. Is certainly something that's um, very much needed, especially in the male community and especially in the African American male community. So to have a black man behind building something so powerful, I think is really, really, it's to be commended. So kudos to you. Also, not a legend. I'm just, just regular Chris. For me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm, born and raised in Charlotte. That's when people say, well, what's I always lead with that. Because I'm proud to be from Charlotte. I'm proud of directionally, where Charlotte's going. I feel like Charlotte's got a lot of opportunities in front of it. It's got a lot of culture behind it, and we're continuing to build and strengthen that culture as well. And that's really what the brand is all about. The brand it's meant to play a role in strengthening and building culture in Charlotte. I grew up in a community called Dallahay Courts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a public housing community. You know what I mean? The projects, the low income, whatever you want to call it, the other side of the tracks. And but it's like, the thing was like for me, now I can say that comfortably. I can say that on camera. I can say that in interviews. There was a period of time in my life where I didn't tell people like where I lived. There was a period of time where, if my friends was dropping me off, it was like, oh, drop me off up the block. You know what I mean? Like I can walk the rest of the way. And that kind of stuff, because, you have this stigma around like people knowing where you live and the accommodations not being as great. And I had a lot of friends that were, whose parents and families were very well off, you know what I mean? And you kind of mix in high school.
Yeah.
And then, I'm in the same academic program as these students, but I got to go home to this, right?
Yeah, to the project, to the hood.
And so, you're dealing with a different set of circumstances, different set of challenges. And, but, ultimately, all of those things, as you get older, you get wiser, you get more comfortable with your story, and you embrace that, because those are the things that really make you who you are, that make you unique, and that help you add value to the conversation in ways that your peers don't have, right? Your lived experience, is added value. So, but that's a little bit about me,
We're gonna dive in soon.
Yeah, let's
definitely.
get it. Let's go.
No, I appreciate that. And like one thing you hit on, which is the biggest thing that I'm big on, is it makes your story unique. Everyone in the world has a story. Right? There's not one person who does not have a story, and that's the purpose of this podcast. I want to get all types of people from all walks of life. I've had athletes, I've had doctors, I've had people from the hood, I've had entrepreneurs, I've had people from everywhere, because I want people to know that like you are important and your story matters. Right? And we're here to tell other stories so that you can learn that, hey, this is how I got out of from where I got out of.
Love it.
And everybody could do it.
Love it.
So before the show, obviously we talked about the meaning of accidental isolation, right? A moment in your life where physically, mentally, or emotionally, you may have been isolated. It may have happened one time, like one big, huge one. You may have many small ones that happen all the time and reoccurring. Let's dive into some of those, right? Or one of those. A moment in your life where you may have felt isolated.
But I would say, one that's more recent is just, when the pandemic hit, and, everything was on kind of mandatory kind of lockdowns and everything like that, and everybody's at home, shelter in place kind of mentality. And I think about how much uncertainty there was in the world at that point in time, and how much fear, we had about COVID, and not knowing, if you got it, if you was gonna end up on a respirator,
Yeah.
or worse, right? Because if you're like me, and this is something that I'm working on, like I'm wired to watch the news.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I watch the news religiously, just to stay abreast of what's going on in the world and what's going on in my community. Um, and so for that reason, I'm a sponge for information, whether it be the news or podcasts or articles that I'm reading. I'm just ingesting all this information, and a lot of it was fearful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so you know I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about the business, and how we're gonna keep this thing afloat, right? And take care of our employees and all kinds of stuff like that. And it was just a very challenging time, in the world. But even just dialing it in to our business, man, it was a very very challenging time. Supply chain, everything
Yeah.
kind of culminating, at the same time. And I think I had just taken a big leap, right? Leaving corporate America.
Okay. So
Um,
you went full-time entrepreneur at that
full
point,
time
right before COVID or during?
during COVID.
Okay, during COVID. Oh,
Yeah,
you got
so
some
it was.
balls. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was rocky, right? But like all not knowing, it was one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know, not knowing, when I left uh, TIAA, which is where I was working at the time. I had been there for 15 years.
Okay.
I had just gotten promoted to a compliance officer and like making the most money I'm making while I've been there. And I decided to leave, right? So it's like people like, are you crazy? You know what I'm saying? Like what are you doing? But it was a decision that I had to make. I never knew whether I would have an opportunity to leave and be full time in the business,
Yeah.
and I had the financial runway to do it at that point in time. So I took that opportunity to focus on the business. A couple of things that kind of went into that decision was, we had been growing 704 Shop year over year over year,
Mhm.
pretty significantly up to that time.
So during COVID, real quick,
Yeah,
what place was the 704 shop in? Because I know you guys started
yeah,
without the shop first. You just
correct,
started by selling clothes.
correct.
So give us a quick background about where
The
the 704
store, the
shop
journey.
was and how it got to where it was in COVID.
Exactly. So we started the business in 2013. We
Okay.
were online only for 4 years, basically.
Mhm.
We didn't get this space where we're shooting now, the storefront in historic South End, until December of 2017.
Okay.
So at that point, we've had the store for, going into like our third year. The business is about 7.5, years old when I decide to leave TIAA. And we had been growing. In particular, like the opportunity that was in front of us was obviously like to try to expand the retail side of our business and do more partnerships and more collaborations, like the Charlotte FCs and
Mhm.
expanding our UNC Charlotte collection and on and on and on. But also the B2B side, right, the business side of our
Yeah.
business, where everything that we do on the retail side for clothing, we can do for other businesses, right? Help them source corporate merch, help them design products, and do it with a higher level of intentionality, not like the merch that
Yeah.
you're used to. And so we had been slowly growing that side of the business. Um, Obviously, with COVID, we started doing masks. That was a huge
Yeah.
windfall financially for our business. So everything was kind of like looking up,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of
So it
course,
made
you
sense
don't
to
know.
leave the
It made
job.
sense. It was the right time. If ever I was gonna make that move, it was the right time for me to do it. And if I didn't do it, it would have been one of those situations where it's like maybe that opportunity doesn't come back around again, right? In
Mhm.
that way. And I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you gave it everything, right? Because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I applied maximum pressure. And if you got to go back into corporate, boom, like I ain't
Yeah.
too proud to
15
do
years
that.
in, you could do that.
Oh, I got a strong Rolodex. I got a good resume, and I got an even stronger network. I'm not necessarily like worried about having to go get a job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can do that. I know how to run systems, right? So, you know, if I have to pivot and go back, I'll do that. But like, I'm gonna give it everything I got.
It's time now.
And so, you know, here we are. You know, it'll be 4 years this November being full time in the business, and by the grace of God, I'm still kicking, still here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so you know, with the masks and everything that we were doing at that time, we made the most money we had ever made in the history of our company, 7.5 years in 2020.
Yeah.
Up to that time. And then in 2021, we basically like repeated it. But of course, it was like a complete kind of like you start to see the writing on the wall. The economy starting to slow down, inflation starting to tick up, a lot of job uncertainty, so people not spending as much and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, a lot of headwinds. But for me, you know, I just stay focused. You know, and when I say me, I speaking with the we from my team, we stay focused, man. Like I got the best team. I put this is not Chris Moxley. This is the effort of a lot of people. You know, my homeboys from, you know, Scott and Jerry that I went to UNC Charlotte with. You know, Kat and Ron, our part-time employees, they pull the lion's share of what goes on in the store. You know, and others. We've had a couple of other employees that are no longer with the firm, but they added value too.
Definitely.
And so, you know, we don't get here without all of it. Everybody's got a role to play. I just try to, you know, play my leadership role, empower people, make sure everybody's voice is heard.
Yeah.
And you know, we make the best business decisions we possibly can.
Exactly, for the
not
team.
knowing anybody's got a crystal ball. You know, you do the best you can every day.
That's all you can do. Yeah. Over half the world dealt with COVID, right? And still, yet everyone had their own individual battles going through it, right? You said you had to, you know, you had to worry about your family, you had to worry about the shop, you had to worry about everything else. How was it for you day to day when you decided to worry about yourself too? Because that's a lot of pressure. I'm young, right? Obviously, you're a little bit older than me. And I understand that when you start to grab and help other people and put a lot of things on your shoulder, it starts to create this thing inside of you, right? And obviously, you're someone who's built tough, right? You're like Forbes, you can handle it, right? Yeah. It's not that you can't. And even if you couldn't handle it, that doesn't mean you're any less of a man. You're any less, you know, you're weaker or anything like that. So going through COVID and day to day and knowing the fears, right? Not knowing that mass is gonna be what takes us to this next level. What were some of the things that maybe you were dealing with, or some of the things that happened during those times?
You start to experience death, right? Death and grief, and that can shock you, you know, to your core. I think for me, you know, one of the things that I just started to, you know, I've always, you know, as you alluded to, like I've always been into more so like the physical health. You know, working out,
most
running,
men,
you know,
yeah,
but not so much the intentional wellness piece, and actually focusing on like, you know, am I in a good place? Am I okay? Do I feel alone? I think we're, you know, as black men, we're kind of built to take it on the chin and not really even do an accurate assessment of how we feel. And so one of the things that I did start during COVID was, you know, Instagram, right? Like everything shut down. You're not seeing your homeboys like you're accustomed to. Nobody can stop in at the crib. You can't just go to your homeboy's crib, like, or none of that. So I used Instagram. Like I created a group on Instagram with all the influential men that were within my immediate orbit.
Yeah.
And it was meant to just be kind of like a check-in space. Like, yo, like, what are you doing right now? And I think like somebody accidentally like hit the dial button and like on it. And so like, you know, Instagram, like you can call people.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it was like everybody's like faces start popping up, and I'm like, oh snap, like okay, like we can.
This ain't what I expected, but it's better, a lot
better.
This is better. Yeah.
So, you know, that was one of those moments where it's like, you know, you begin to feel like you're not so isolated. Obviously, you still got to work through what's going on, but it was actually really impactful to be able to check in with my guys like in that way. The first time I actually got COVID, and it was like, oh snap, like you know what I mean?
How did COVID affect you?
it was mild at first,
Uh-huh.
and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nights was rough. The nights was like, oh snap!
Sweats.
Like
Hot.
I see what they've been talking about on TV. You know, because before, you know, it's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know, like, you know, and then you got all the people saying, you know, maybe it's gonna be just like a flu or whatever. Like, nah,
Mm-mm.
it wasn't. It was definitely
Yeah.
worse.
I've caught it like
Um,
3 times. And like, the very first time I
yeah,
caught it, I actually caught COVID before COVID was like
before it was a
widespread.
thing, I'm
And I
sure.
got sick and I didn't really know what it was. And I was
Mhm.
just like, it's a bad fever. I was bed rest. Couldn't move for 3 days.
Yeah,
Then I
yeah,
finally
you
got on my
definitely
feet.
had it.
Second time I had it, didn't feel nothing. I was good. It was like I didn't have it. The third time I have it, I was in Birmingham playing football for the Stallions. And I don't know what it was, but it felt like the first time. But the first time I was down for like a week and a half.
Wow.
This time I was in season, so I was like, I can't afford to be down for a week and a half. So like I flooded my body with Pedialyte, pickle
Oh my
juice, water,
gosh.
Theraflu. Like I was good in like 2 days, but like I was down bad, like sweats. I couldn't move, body
Boy.
weak. But yeah, I think my mindset was a whole lot stronger then, and I was
Yeah.
just like getting outside, walking, like just not sitting still.
Yeah,
I think that was
yeah.
the biggest thing is like not sitting still in it.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Yeah.
COVID was until you get it, like you probably would think that it was, oh, they're over exaggerating or maybe something like that. But when you get it,
Yeah.
you know it's real.
I think it's like, you know, it ended up being, you know, largely a positive force in my life because, you know, now even to this day, like I'm just more intentional about, you know, if I'm working from home, getting up and actually going out to walk the dog or get some fresh air, get some sunlight, right? Those are things that I would do here and there, like sometimes when I was in corporate,
But never thought about it.
but not really like with an intentionality.
Mhm.
It was more, and not with the purpose of it being like, okay, I'm doing this because I know I need it, right? It was more so like, oh, like I've been in this office all day, like let me just go get, you know, get some fresh air, or take my laptop out and like, you know, just kind of get a change of scenery. But it wasn't because I was being intentional about like my mental
It
health.
was just this is what
Yeah,
this is the
it was just
norm. You
change
know
of
what I'm saying?
scenery,
I've been
right?
here seven
I've been at this
hours.
cubicle like all day.
Walk
Like let me
around.
move around
Uh-huh.
because I can. And so and I think we do need that focus.
Mhm.
I think people do need to intentionally check in and do certain things that have a there's a reason behind it
Yeah,
with
purpose.
meaning. Yeah,
So
with purpose.
when would you say that you started to notice that in yourself? Because usually you've already been through things, right? You don't just notice this when you're great, right? You
Yeah.
don't really pay attention to things when things are going good. You usually start to pay attention when things are going bad on the route to making things better. So during COVID, you're dealing with death. You're
Yeah.
dealing with the business not really knowing the certainty.
Mhm.
And then at some point you started to realize that, hey, I need to start checking in or I need to start doing these things. Like me, I was always, even last season, right? A couple people spoke up about COVID and like that was a big isolation for them. And like what I've gathered was like, besides the deaths, right? Those are serious and those are heartfelt, right?
Mhm.
COVID was a good thing because it made people get off the well, I'm not gonna say get off the phone completely, but it made people like stop moving around on automation,
Yeah.
right? Like you had to sit down, you couldn't go nowhere. And like after you scroll on your phone for a certain amount of hours, you have to sit with
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it brought a lot of attention to a lot of things. So when during this isolation do you feel like it clicked to not just go outside and walk the dog because that's what I got to do,
Yeah.
but hey, let's go outside and take some time to
Yeah.
walk the dog and be in the nature and be and breathe and give myself a break. When would that click or how'd you feel when
How
that
did it
clicked?
happen? Yes. You know, there's a lot of computer work,
Hmm.
right, at the time. And I just remember like every day, you know, I would force myself, right, to get up, you know, because you could sleep in if you want, but like I would always get up like to just be productive and like get my day going. So and this was before like I had a workstation and like a desk and everything set up. So like, you know, I'm working at my kitchen table like most days. I got the laptop, you know, and before I had decided to leave TIA, I got two computers.
Oh, she
I
was
got my
locked in.
corporate computer, and then I got my personal laptop where I do all my 704 shop stuff on. So I'm
Uh-huh.
doing double duty, just kind of stretched thin, um, trying to make ends meet and just and do the best I can. And I started to just ask myself, like, am I happy, man? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like 3 words. Am I happy? Am I happy with what I'm doing with the business? Am I happy doing what I'm doing with corporate? Am I happy just like in life? Am I happy as a like, am I happy with my effort as a father? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I happy? And the more I started to peel back that onion, there were a lot of layers in my life that I was unhappy with. And so as you kind of grapple with that and start to have that inward look, that self-reflection, that's when it was like, I got to do something different. I can't sit at this kitchen table all day. Like, I got to get out and do something, and just give yourself the space to work through what's going on up here, because it was becoming kind of like a toxic, environment, just sitting.
And this is new for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There was a point in my life where I didn't do this, and then once I became more, I'd say like my senior year of college, I started to read more and more into stoicism, more into philosophy, right? And then I fell into yoga. So I thankfully for me, I was younger when I was able to understand these things, understand that mental health is very important. But this is new to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was new to me.
So when you started to peel these layers back, like, how was it? Because I mean, you can ask some people and they peeled them back and things are going smooth, right?
Oh,
But like you brought up the idea of like I started peeling the layers back like an onion. Like when you peel onions, you start to cry,
yeah.
right? Things start to get serious, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, am I happy? When that answer is no, now you really have to figure out why.
Yeah.
How do I make myself happy?
Yeah.
What can I do? So like when you were starting to peel back things, like what are things you start to learn about yourself that you didn't like,
Yeah.
or things you learned about yourself that directly made you unhappy, or like what were these things that you started to peel back?
I think for me, I started to think about the fact that a lot of the decisions that I had made in my life were not necessarily decisions for me. It was decisions for other people. Um, and while you don't, like, for me, I'm not a resentful person. Like, I feel like you always do the best you can in the moment that you're in. Um, and so, but for me, I started to realize, okay, um, there were a lot of decisions that I made, again, not necessarily because
Chris
they were
wanted to make
decisions
them.
that I wanted to make, but I felt like they were decisions that I had to make.
Okay.
And so I started to ask myself, okay, even with the decision to like leave corporate America, right? Again, I'm in that space where I'm like, okay, um, do I run this by my mentors, or like, talk to people like close to me to see like what they think? I didn't do none of it, because I was like, this is gonna be a Chris Moxley decision.
Yeah.
You know,
It's your life.
I don't know, and I don't know whether people will be supportive or they'll try to talk me out of it or whatever the case. But like this one, this is gonna be what I need to do for me. And that's a break from the norm for me, because I have people that depend on me, that count on me. And so ultimately, like, if it doesn't work out, this could adversely impact people that I love and that I care about. So it's not like I'm making the decision callously and recklessly, but at the same time, I
had
gotta
to make
do what I gotta
yeah.
do. And so so what do, right? Like, you make the decision and you just work your ass off, right? Just to make sure that you did not make that decision in vain, right? So, and again, if it doesn't work out, then I can live with that.
Because I made the decision
Because I
for
made
me.
that decision for
I didn't
me,
do
and
it for
it's like,
somebody else.
I know that I applied everything that I had to it. And it's, sometimes it's just, God's timing or whatever the case, and I'm good with all of that. But yeah, man, I thought a lot about just like, have I been living for me? And ultimately, like you said, I ended up in a space where it was like, man, like, I probably would have made some different decisions at just different junctures in my life where I had to play it safe, whether that be financially or otherwise, you know. Um, and some of that is, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, man,
And you can't change the
you
past
can't
anyway.
change the
Yeah,
past.
it's done what's done.
But yeah, I mean, just letting that sink in was a pivotal moment, because, you know, um, I'm used to just like I don't really give too much like I'm not a highly reflective person
Mm-hmm.
historically speaking. I'm just like, what do I have to do today?
Next. Yeah.
Tackle these things. Then we into tomorrow now. What do we got to do right? And it's I just keep going. Whatever's next, you just knock them down. You get some wins on the board. I don't even really celebrate the wins. That's also new for me.
Okay.
Um,
Have you been celebrating more than wins now?
I'm better at it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm better at talking to myself and being like, you know what, Chris, man, like that was
Yeah.
pretty dope.
Yeah.
You know,
Were you bad at like negative self-talk? Like, I know you don't like to dwell or reflect, but would you beat yourself up inside, like, or would you just kind of let it go when things went bad?
So when things went bad, I would say, you know, I've never been big on like negative self talk.
Okay.
Because I'm usually trying to figure out like what's next. Anyway,
I ain't got time. I don't have time to like punish myself.
Yeah, I don't have time to really dwell.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's not really productive.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think
It's
you
a
know,
great mindset to have.
reflective.
Yeah.
Being reflective is not the same thing as dwelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Because there's the tension behind that. When you're
exactly.
dwelling, you're just moping around.
Exactly.
I've been feeling sorry for yourself.
Exactly.
Reflecting is being intentional. Like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What could I have done better?
Exactly.
And once again, like, that's the work. That's the tools in the toolbox. Like, you're not just here and hoping and sobbing and wondering if things are going to get fixed. Like, no, I need to figure out what I did wrong, so when I go it again, because I'm not going to give up, I can do it a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reflective piece, like, I would do it along the way.
Yeah.
But I would never spend too much
in the
time,
moment.
you know, in it. And whereas now, you know, I feel like I have found the value in having downtime. You know, the 30-year, the 25, 30-year-old Chris was like, pack his schedule with just like everything that he felt like he needed to be doing to go get it, whether it be rise up the corporate ladder or trying to help build the business and, you know, making a name for myself in the community and stuff like that. Like I was always on the go.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, I'm very deliberate about like what spaces I occupy and when, and I'm good with just like being
Not
at
going,
home.
yeah.
And like, you know what I'm saying? Some of that is just experience and like, you know, I'm in a different place where I can say no to things. Whereas, you know, maybe I didn't have that luxury in my younger years as I'm trying to accomplish just different things. But also, you know, like that comes with a toll. It comes with a toll of just like, you know, being at work. You know, you getting up at, you know, 6:45, 6:30, 6:45, 7. You got to be at work at 8. You got to do that grind. Get off at 6. Go to the gym. Then I'm going to networking events and functions, and you got to do that over and over. Oh, and by the way, some nights I'm doing pop-ups, and like, you know, I got to come by the office and pick up inventory and equipment and go to the event, set up, run an event for multiple hours, break down, get all the inventory back. Boom, got to be at work at 8 o'clock next day, doing that over and over and over. And it's just, you know, we put the work in.
Yeah.
We put the work in to build this business. It can come with a toll.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm glad you said that, because once again, like, a lot of people, good, bad, or indifferent, use mental health, whether it's diagnosed illnesses or just kind of self-diagnosed and understanding that they have their own troubles, because everybody has it, use those as crutches.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you bring up the fact that I noticed I was on automation. I noticed I was up 6 to 12 a.m. And yet I knew I still had to do that. So initially, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to ask, like, while you were going through that, did you notice you were on automation? And then it dawned on me that, like, this platform isn't here to coddle.
Yeah.
Right? It's not here to tell you, man, I was working 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. and I just can't do that because it's not good for the body.
Yeah.
Duality. Two things could be true at once.
Right.
Yes, it's not good for the body, and yet in life you have to do that work. And if you have a place where you want to get to, you have a goal that you want to reach, it's going to take some mental fatigue, right? It's going to take some not, you know what I'm saying, disorders or no illnesses, but it's going to take some anxiety. It's going to take some depression. It's going to take some sadness. It's going to take some anger. Like, these things are going to happen. And that's why this platform is here, right? It's not here to alleviate all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are nothing, like you can't control emotions,
Right.
right? You can only like maneuver around them, place them where they can, you know what I'm saying? But you can't control them. It's a natural thing. So I'm glad you mentioned that and how you realize that, like, although like this is hard, although I'm going through these things, but there's a prize on the end of it.
That's what I was about to say.
There's a prize on the end of it.
Yeah.
So as you were going through these things and you seeing the prize and you're understanding that, hey, I'm going to make this sacrifice that I may not be happy today.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I may not be happy today. How did you get through it? Like, how did you know that, like, today is not going to be a day I'm happy?
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it. Was it just a grind? Was it just as that simple as, like, I know what's at the end? Was it more than that? How was that?
Yeah. So the answer to that question goes back to Dallahay. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to, you know, being within those four walls in that community, not knowing, like, you know, knowing that, like, I want something better for my life. You know, that was my why. That has been my why before my son was born. You know, my son was born in 2006. He's 18.
Okay.
This year he turned 18 in April. And so
wait. April when?
In April 20th.
Ooh, I'm on the 23rd. April
oh,
23rd.
Okay.
Okay. So we cool.
No doubt. So, you know, before he came along, you know, my driving force, and it still is to some degree, you know, to this day, is, you know, I know how easy you can go back to the hood, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't come from a family where it was like, if you fall down, you got somewhere
somebody
to stay.
To pick you
like,
up.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, just come back to the crib. It was like, nah, like
once you leave,
it was like, you better figure it out. And so that was always the thing that just pushed me. You know, even while I was in corporate and all of that, it was just like, you know, even once I got a degree, you know, while I was getting my degree, it was like, man, like, I'm just built different. I've been through different things. I come from a different kind of community with different levels of challenges. You know, I know what it's like to have to, like, study in a bathtub because, like, they shooting outside, and, like, I gotta find a
safe place to read this book so I can pass this test
and
tomorrow.
pass this test tomorrow. Like, for real. You know, like, that's something that, like, when I tell people that, it's like, wow, like, that's things that they've never even considered. You know what I mean? And so I've just always been built to persevere. I can, you know, I think as a result of growing up in an environment like that, you learn how to hyper compartmentalize. Again, gunshots, fighting, people selling drugs, prostitution, all kinds of stuff going on right outside your front door. But I still graduated, like, at the top of my class in high school, like in college, and all of the things, because regardless of what was going on, I could block it out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking about, like, tunnel vision on this subject matter. And then once I pass that exam, again, it's like I'm on to the next thing. And so I become wired to do that. Like, it becomes like just habit. Like, even when you get out of school, you get into real life, it's like, okay, boom, you got the job. All right, now what?
Find your routine.
All of it just becomes so routine. And so then, you know, when my son Jalen is born, you know, I never had life insurance before Jalen was born.
I didn't know what to do.
You know what I'm saying? And it was like, oh man, like, here I am, like, a financial professional for many years, no life insurance.
Yeah.
Worked at a life insurance company. You know what I'm saying? For a while. But it just, when you have somebody else that's literally gonna be adversely impacted by, like, if something happens to you, and, you know, like, their complete financial security is based in that, it was like, oh man, like, I gotta change a whole bunch of stuff. It didn't change my drive, right? It just shifted it in a different way. It was like, okay, now I have a different why.
Yeah.
And I'm still relentless about, like, how much I want to be successful, how much I want to climb the ladder, how much I want to be successful in entrepreneurship, how much I want to make a name for myself, not for the sake of making a name, but because I want to build wealth. and be able to take care of the people that I love.
Definitely.
And yeah, so my why changed, but
and that helps you
yeah,
get through all those.
it helped me get through it. You know, it's really about your why. You know, it's about your why and how much you believe in your dream. And so yeah, like it made it easier to sacrifice those days where it's like, man, my body is tired, like I'm in pain. But I got to keep going. I got to get through this. I got to get a good night's sleep. I got to show up tomorrow and get on the phones. And I was in the call center, one of the hardest jobs on the planet. And you have to lock in mentally and just get through it, because like I said, it was just like, I got other people that's counting on me.
Definitely. So to wrap up ish, right? The catchphrase of the show is putting tools in the toolbox of others, right? We're here listening to Chris tell his story, not so that he can tell you what to do and how to live your life, right? We're here so that he can tell your story. So if you go through or dealing with something similar, you can understand that some of the things he did, I can incorporate in my life to make sure that I'm successful, right? Not just financially, right? Successful mentally and emotionally, successfully for my family, right? So to end the show, I always like to get the guests a call to action, right? Something specific, and once again, something intentional, so that the guests can take away, hey, these are 3 tools that I can add in my toolbox.
Okay.
On the lines of community, on the lines like of my why, like whatever it is to you, like what would be 3 tools that helped you peel those layers back, or the awareness to even start peeling the layers back?
Definitely ask yourself what's important to you, because I think in many cases, I thought I knew what was important to me, but really what I was doing was just going through the motions. I was just doing, what I did yesterday, and not really being intentional about that reflective piece. Once I did that, and I started to ask myself, like what's important to me, my behaviors completely changed.
Okay.
Right. Around, serving on boards, right? Because growing up in Dallahay Courts, like I've always been big on volunteerism and community impact. But a lot of the volunteerism that I was doing, again, it was just routine. Like it was like I'm just accustomed to going to the men's shelter, or crisis assistance ministries and volunteering, or all kinds of just different volunteerism things. But when I started to think about, okay, what makes me happy, like what are my priorities, I knew that I wanted my impact to be bigger than that. And so again, you start to think about what behaviors kind of go go into those thoughts. And that's when I started serving on nonprofit boards and just expanding my reach, because nonprofit board service is about you're impacting an organization that impacts the community. So your impact is actually like compounded, if you will. Whereas before, my impact is just on what I can touch, right? So it's about extending your reach. But I wasn't really thinking about that until you start to do the reflective piece. The other thing is, for better or for worse, I'm not wired to get up early.
You ain't alone. There's a lot of people like that.
I'm not wired to get up early, but I can't deny the fact that I'm more productive when I get up early. I have more energy when I get up early. And I end up having a better day when I get up early. So I'm a work in progress around trying to be consistent with getting up early. At one point, I was getting up early and I would go to the gym, that's a little bit much.
Jumped in the deep end.
Yeah. But the only reason I was able to be successful with that was because I had an accountability partner.
It's huge.
One of my guys, one of my best friends, I knew that we was meeting at the gym, so like
can't let him down.
I can't let him down, right, and vice versa. And so I'm not doing that right now, but ultimately I want to get back to that, right? Because it really is the perfect time for me to go to the gym, as much as my day gets busy. And ultimately, you end up throwing the gym plans out the window because you got
if you don't get it early,
priorities. So getting up early, and then I think the third thing is check in on your loved ones. Make that call. I'm the worst at it. Man, I'm very big on. I'll be thinking about you, but I didn't make the call. I didn't reach out. I didn't send the text. So I'm trying to be more. I'm trying to get better with that and just be more intentional with that. I lost my grandmother. Um, you know, uh, Recently. It still feels recent, and I definitely could have done a better job with just being in touch with her more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my younger brother and my younger sister, they would be like, "Oh man, I talked to grandma." I'm like, "Oh man, why you got rub?" You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
rubbing it in. But I love my grandmother dearly, so I'm just trying to be better at, like, one person at a time. My mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call, check in on my mom. And my mom is a truck driver. Like, she's gone, she's on the
All
road
the
a
time.
lot. And so I never know where she's at, in the world, right? Or in the domestic United States. And so it's always just interesting to see, like, one, whether she will pick up the phone. And when she does, it's always just such a loving conversation. I love my mom dearly. So, check in on your loved ones. That's a that's a tool in my toolkit, and it helps me, right? Just knowing that I've
Yeah.
checked in on them, and I get loved on, and I get that encouragement to keep going, and I get that sounding board. Um, I'm happy. My mentor, Wilbert, is back in Charlotte now too. He's been in Atlanta for forever. So again, just being intentional. Like, I was with him recently, and we set up a meeting where, because his schedule, first of all, he's retired, so he be on the road.
Yeah,
He's flying to he flying to Boston. I'm like, bro, you got to sit down. But my schedule is busy too, right? And if you're not intentional, life will just get in
keep
the
going.
way,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, dang, like, I haven't seen my mentor, and he lives right up the street from me. So what we decided, I said, yo, let's just, like, put a recurring thing on the calendar,
Mm-hmm.
like every couple Fridays or whatever. Like, I'm gonna come by, and, like, this is our time to just kick it, and we'll have a couple drinks, or we'll shoot pool, or whatever the case. But, like, let's be intentional about um, getting back in each other's lives in the
Mm-hmm.
way that we were before he had to move to Atlanta. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
But that, again, that falls in that category of just, like, checking in on your loved ones, man. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Man, I appreciate it. Like you said, you're a busy man.
Yeah.
You're definitely a busy man. So I appreciate you, one, giving me the time to ask you questions.
Man, I was excited about this. When you told me about it at the other event, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I can't wait to do that." Because, again, just, I'm trying to be better at prioritizing my own, mental health and wellness. And when you said that was kind of like the cornerstone of the
Yeah.
podcast, I'm like, bro,
Let's
like,
do it.
let's do
Yeah.
it. So I'm with it.
And
I
like you said,
appreciate
like,
it.
you're big, and you're bringing back intention about being in the community. I know you sit on numerous boards. I know you sit on a lot of things to help bring in the community. So, like I said, this is for the world, and this season specifically is for this community. Like, I'm really trying to dive in, be involved in this community. So I appreciate you giving me time. I appreciate you letting me use the 704 shop.